The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Tuesday night, February 17th, 2026. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 316, if you're keeping score at home, and you should. Our guest tonight is Jonathan Butcher. I'm going to get this right. He's the Will Skillman Fellow of Education for the Heritage Foundation, and he's written a new book. It's called The Polarization Myth, America's Surprising Consensus on Race, Schools, and Sex. And that's the reason I wanted to have him on. And he's coming to us from Greenville, South Carolina, his home office. Hi, Jonathan. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm going to do a little talking here before I ask you a question here, because I really am fascinated by what you have going on here. Like I said, we're in Minneapolis, and of course, there's been a bunch of protests and riots here in Minneapolis for the last couple of weeks. And I have contended that one of the reasons this is happening, maybe not the primary reason, but one of the reasons is because we have a bunch of people that are trying to convince the American public through the media that they are in the majority, and actually they are not. Every single poll I've seen, even the left-leaning polls, say the majority of Americans are not only for deporting illegal alien criminals, but all illegal aliens. The polls are about 52 to 55% in favor of that. So, as far as I can tell, the reason this is happening is because the press is doing an absolute piss poor or deliberate job of not informing the public. And where are you sitting on all this?
Well, on the issues that I covered in my book, which included some of the most hotly debated topics of the last few years, from racial preferences in college admissions or the use of race when someone is promoted or given tenure, to gender in schools, teaching young children the idea that they could be born in the wrong body. All of these were topics that I covered in my book, The Polarization Myth. And it turns out that a majority of those who I surveyed in a nationally representative survey, including parents, they actually don't like the idea of advancing someone in their career or in life because of their skin color. They don't like teaching young children that gender means more than sex, or that they can actually decide to be the opposite gender. They don't like the idea of having books with explicit sexual activity on school library shelves. All of these things are very common sense positions. And because of the agreement, I would say that there is a sense of national identity that we actually share. And you're right. There is a group of people who have sort of proclaimed themselves the experts, right, in the media or in higher education, who are telling us that, if we hold one of these common sense positions, we're out of touch. Well, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, so you have the Democratic Party, and I have asked a lot of people this, so this is not a loaded question. I do not know the answer. Basically, 20% of the Democratic Party, which I will call leftist lunatics, have taken over the entire party. And how did that happen?
Yeah, there are definitely some extremists on the left. And I would say when it comes to the issue of race, they use this idea of guilt, I think, to tug on American souls, right? This idea that we are still guilty of the institution of slavery from the 19th century or the Jim Crow era, right? They even, and this includes some of the more outspoken and high profile so-called social justice advocates, they even criticize the Civil Rights Act and say that there's the Civil Rights Act itself caused racism. The same is true in the same formula on the issue of gender, right? There are radicals on the left who are trying to pull the entire country to this idea that a child could say they're born in the wrong body and they immediately should be affirmed, right? We have this notion that a child cannot diagnose themselves as having strep throat or a sprained ankle. But if they say they're born in the wrong body, we should immediately say, why, yes, you're right, and move them along the path of taking medicines to intervene with their hormones to eventually getting surgeries that can permanently alter their bodies, right? And this is coming from, as you described, a pretty extreme side of the radical left.
So, reiterate my question. How did they end up getting this into society proper? How did this happen? I mean, you're right, because most people think these ideas are ludicrous. And I do agree. All the polling has said, and I do have to ask you in a minute about how you did your personal polling, but all the polling seems to think that Americans think these ideas are ridiculous, and yet they've basically matriculated into mainstream culture. How did this happen?
Well, I think a key hook is this issue of civil rights, because not only when it comes to the idea of racial preferences and sort of tugging on this idea of guilt, which, by the way, those at the New York Times who released the 1619 Project all those years ago, if you remember,
Yeah.
August 2019, right? This idea that our founding documents were false when they were written, they're sort of tugging on this notion of guilt that Americans may still have because no one wants to be called racist. Well, in the same way, radical gender activists try to attach the issue of racial equality to, quote, gender equality in the Civil Rights Act. And you can see, case in point, during the Biden administration, they tried to squeeze into the Civil Rights Act this idea of, quote, sexual orientation and gender identity, right? They wanted to work that into civil rights law. So they're trying to use, which appropriately so, Americans cherish the idea of civil rights, right? They cherish the idea that our government does not condone treating people differently based on skin color or country of origin or sex, right? But what they're trying to use is the Civil Rights Act as a lever, right? To inject into law this idea that, you know, if you say you were born in the wrong body, or if you say that your ethnicity is more important than anything else, you cannot be argued with, right? They're trying to insert that into law, which of course then flows downstream into the media, into education, into all the different sectors of our cultural life.
So what's the end game? I have an idea, but you go first. You're the guest. What's the end game here?
Well, I mean, the only solution really that I've come to is some form of reparations. And there's disagreement over what reparations should be or how much. So we're talking about a direct payment, right, to individuals who had some relation to someone who was persecuted in the past because of their skin color, right? Now, how much it is and how much of the DNA or what should be in your bloodstream in order to receive a payment. There's all sorts of disagreement about that. But, beyond that, more importantly, right, these solutions don't actually give us hope for a brighter future. This idea of reparations for the past doesn't actually help us understand what the American dream is and how this next generation of people, no matter their color or background, can actually achieve those things, right? Those things that are in the good life.
Well, there's another thing too, and that is it's what I call the natural statute of limitations. If we were 10, 20 years past the Emancipation Proclamation, I could see, maybe we owe a generation of people some money, but now we're not only 150, 160 years away from that. There's not a single person alive today who was a slave. I mean, it's like, not only that, we're pretty much several generations away from anybody doing it. I mean, and so the whole thing, it's absurd to me. I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
and the issue of how much, where does it come from, and what does this mean for, let's say, the Great Society programs of the 1960s, right? That was a huge federal investment in everything from preschool education, in Head Start, to the Higher Education Act, which expanded the federal role in college and student lending. the K-12 arena and how much money was invested in from the federal government into K-12 schools and on down the line, right? All of these programs have turned out to be a failure. Head Start is found in longitudinal studies to not show benefits to young children when they enter elementary school. Any benefits that they may have had coming out of preschool are gone. In the Higher Education Act, we have $1.8 trillion in outstanding student loan debt today. We measure college completion in terms of 6 years when it takes a student to get a degree, not even 4 years anymore. And in K-12 education, I mean, it's practically a broken record that reading scores and math scores today are at or near historical lows. So we've made this huge investment from the taxpayer to these government programs, and they have turned out to actually be worse for the individuals who they're supposed to be helping.
Is that because everything on the government's a grift? I mean, you know, the other thing going on in Minnesota here, and I have to tell you this whole thing about the Somali community and these nonprofit organizations. I mean, first of all, I think the last statistic I saw is that 78 people are now been convicted of crimes, and there's another 10 or 20 that are still waiting on the docket or something like that. And we're talking about literally billions of dollars. And I think the public is starting to get the impression that pretty much any program the government runs is just full of fraud.
Well, look, the Nobel laureate Milton Friedman used to say that you're always more careful with your own money than somebody else's money.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
when we use government money, which is somebody else's money, to use some government program supported by interest groups, you are more likely to wind up with some level of fraud or mismanagement because they're simply not as careful with it, right? I think what is
Yeah.
important today is to look at, I mean, what solutions are we really talking about in K-12 education and beyond? Well, I mean, you can start with education choice, right? This idea that parents should have the freedom to choose how and where their children learn. And of all places, I mean, Minnesota is home to the first charter school law in the country, right? It was the first place where public schools of choice were made available to children. And now today we have 18 states around the country where every child in that state can apply for a private school scholarship or education savings account to customize their learning experience. On the side of civil rights, we have state lawmakers around the country. We're getting to half now who are prohibiting the use of taxpayer money on DEI programs. We have states like Florida, Texas, and others that are prohibiting the teaching of, quote, gender to young children, even all the way through K-12. I mean, these are the kinds of solutions that protect civil rights, that give parents an option about how their children are educated, and it can be aligned to their values, as well as for issues related to school safety and student achievement. I mean, these are the kinds of solutions we should be talking about nationwide.
So I'm going to run a theory by you that I have. As a former liberal, you go back 60 years to the Civil Rights Acts, like you were talking about, when the Democratic Party was basically, it's like what they were really good at is pointing out problems in society, and they were legitimately good at it. I don't know if they were good at solving it, but at least they would point out the problems, right? And so the Rights Act were passed, and it was probably a good thing. It was a good thing because I could also make the argument that consequential racism is no longer exists. I mean, but what I'm getting at here is that so the Democratic Party did that, and as more and more problems in society have been solved, they have less and less. We have less and less a use for them. In other words, they're basically putting themselves out of obsolescence. And so you get to 2015, 2018, 2019, and you're talking about the 1619 project, which is absolutely absurd on its face. And they start making stuff up literally to try to talk the public into the fact they're relevant. Do you think there's any truth to what I'm talking about?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think that going back to these quote experts who are really on the radical end of the spectrum, what they're trying to do is to insert these ideas into the mainstream and look for some constituency that will come out and defend it. And the fact is that there simply aren't the numbers there, right? People don't really want boys to use girls' bathrooms. They don't want that. They
Yeah.
don't want boys to participate on girls' athletic teams. And some of the other questions I asked in my book included, do you want character and virtue taught in schools? Overwhelmingly, the answer was yes, right? It was 74% in my survey, but in surveys before that predated mine, we found similar numbers. Parents also want the idea that children should finish high school, either get a job or enter college, and then get married before they have children. They want that taught to young people. It's known as the success sequence in the social science literature. But I mean, these are common sense things that we shouldn't be hiding from children, right? We shouldn't be soft peddling these ideas. We're not trying to offend anyone. We're trying to let them know that 97% of those in the millennial generation that completed these 3 steps were not living in poverty in their prime working ages. In fact, they were on their way to middle class, if not already there. These are the kinds of things that we can build communities around.
I've got so many questions here, but first I want to ask you, how did you what was the impetus to you doing this book? What went off in your head that said I have to do this?
I kept seeing headlines over and over again that America is polarized. I would see it in, the New York Magazine. We'd see it from foundations that would do public policy research, and they would say that America is hopelessly polarized, that, the election results demonstrate that we're just split 50-50. But when you look at the issues, when you ask people about the things they're talking about, around the dinner table with their kids or, across the hall at work, on these topics, we actually have widespread agreement here, right? There's majority agreement on some of these key cultural questions. And that means that the experts who keep telling us that we need some sort of radical change to our election system, to our courts, right, in order to get America back on track, that they're wrong, right? They're giving us some sort of illusion that the only way to repair America is to take apart our system of rights and laws and representation, when that's not it at all. Right. The reality is we need to be distributing to people, to Americans, the truth that sex is a biological fact. Right. And the notion of gender is it's a construct that was created in the 60s and 70s by radicals who really can trace their origins all the way back to Marx and Marxism. That's where these ideas are really coming from.
The reason I wanted to have you on, Jonathan, is because I harp on this on the show constantly about the fact that the press will give the public one impression of what's going on, and then surveys seem to do the opposite. My problem personally, my problem is not politicians. I expect them to lie. I mean, that's kind of, they have to lie to get reelected. Fine. I don't have elected officials on the show for that reason, but that's fine. I understand that. My real problems with the media. It's like you read the media and then you look at the polls, and they're two different things. And so now I have to ask you this too. So, okay, you decided to do the book. Now you did polling on your own, right? And
I contracted with a company to do it. So it's a company that has a base that they of respondents who they use, and it was a nationally representative survey based on sex and location of the country. And so I wanted to make sure, so if you do a nationally representative survey, usually you can do it with about, give or take 1,000 people. If it's well balanced.
you used 2,000, right?
That's right. So I doubled it. And I
Right.
did that on purpose. I mean, I wanted a larger figure. And so it was not just of the general public, although it was a general pop survey, but also of parents. So I have a nationally representative samples of both parents and the general population.
Yeah, can you feel comfortable naming the firm you hired to do it? Or do you know
It was Braun. Yeah, I'd name it in my appendix. It was Braun Research. Yeah, Braun
Uh-huh.
Research.
What was there anything that came out of the survey results, or the one thing that really surprised you?
I think that it's important to know that of all the questions I asked, I never got a set of responses that showed favor for the opposite answer. Now, there was some neutrality. There were some answers to questions where it was, a third in favor, a third opposed, a third who were neutral, right? There was some of that, which I think I would attribute to ambiguity, but I don't think there were no responses that I got where I thought, wow, there's really a serious majority here in favor of a radical liberal position. There was divide, for example, on teaching phonics or teaching cueing in whole language, and I would chalk that up to a pretty technical philosophies around teaching. Now, the research shows that teaching phonics is essential, and that phonics is actually far more effective in teaching than using cueing and look-say. But I think that not every American can be an expert on every topic, and so when we
Well, I
find
have to say, to
responses.
stop you for a second though. See, talking about being an expert, I don't really understood what you said there. So I know what phonics is, but what are those other things?
So, look, say, and cueing is a way of teaching reading that dates back more than 100 years to the progressive era and John Dewey around K-12 education. And the idea is that instead of showing students letters and giving them phonetic sounds that goes with it, instead you show them a picture and then you write the word beneath it. And then you will just tell the student to match the picture and the word. So, for example, if you show them a picture of, let's say, a whale, and you put the word fish beneath it, progressives in progressive education would say, yes, that's accurate, right? That's close enough. And it was remarkable to me that cueing and look say would have this level of inaccuracy that would go along with it. And I think it helps to explain why progressive education is such a failure, right? And there has been for so many years such low scores when it comes to reading. It's because they're using this highly ineffective method to teach students how to discern letters. So fortunately today, and this is why I wrote, a whole chapter about it. But fortunately today, there's a great pushback against look-say and cueing, and we're actually moving back to a pretty fundamental idea around phonics. And it's really important today because of why reading scores have been so low around the country.
Well, I don't have to tell you this. I mean, the vast majority of teachers or people in the education um, profession in the United States are liberal, and yet, I mean, you alluded to this. I'm talking about my own personal education. I graduated from high school 50 years ago. In the 50 years I graduated from high school in Minnesota, here, I did actually go here. Uh, Test scores have gone down consistently over 50 years, and yet the amount of money spent per student, at least in Minnesota, adjusted for inflation, has gone up 6 times, 600%, and yet we're not getting any results worth crap. And the thing that I harp about on the show constantly about the fact is that we can bitch and moan about teaching kids about gender, but the real problem is there's only so many hours of the school day, and every minute you spend teaching them about gender, they're not learning math. That's my real that's my real priority problem, even though I don't totally disagree. Well, the gender stuff, like I'm with you on that. The fact of the matter is there's only so much time you have to teach kids, and they're not learning anything of any substance. And then people wonder why the Chinese are going to beat the crap out of us. I mean,
I think you're exactly right. And that's the story around the country, right? I mean, the
yeah,
way that spending has gone up.
yeah. So the Chinese, they have a culture of no innovation or no imagination whatsoever. They basically steal all their ideas from us, but their kids are very rigorously trained. I mean, it's like when it comes to basics, their children are very, very with it, and ours are like the opposite. We got a lot of imagination. Now I think we're getting to the point where kids have imagination, but they don't have the tools to implement it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in research we've done at the Heritage Foundation, we've actually uncovered and interviewed students at Stanford who have been contacted by individuals from the Chinese Communist Party who are trying to get information from them about what they are studying and what they're doing at Stanford, especially when it comes to highly sensitive topics. So there are examples of the CCP trying to get information from American students in high level universities. It's quite frightening what's being done.
What's it like working for the Heritage Foundation? What's that like?
So we are able to do research on topics that matter to everyday parents, like the success of school choice, to topics that we should be concerned about, like international espionage when it comes to higher education. We're able to produce high quality research, investigative journalism. It's great to be on the conservative side where we are trying to protect an America where freedom, opportunity, and civil society flourish. That's the goal.
You and I, in this conversation so far, have referenced experts a lot. What's the problem with experts? I mean, it just seems like more and more as time goes on. And once again, maybe this is the press reflecting this. I don't know. that experts seem to be wrong. You know, I mean, I don't have to tell you. It's like it happens all in every single endeavor. It seems like I mean, I'll just give you an example. I found this amazing. So when Barack Obama left office, I have a lot of economists who come on the show. USA Today did a survey of 15 highly recognized economists, basically the top 15 people in the country, and all 15 of them said America would never see 3% GDP growth ever again. And of course, Trump got in, and it was 4% the first year. I mean, like, so why are so many people who are supposedly highly trained at so many things seem to be so wrong about everything?
Well, when you have a microphone and a camera, that suddenly you become an expert instead of being a person who's really been immersed in the topic for their whole career. And actually, I actually think that's why education is so important and why I've spent so much time researching it. Because education is not just about imparting information to young people, you're actually cultivating their soul, right? You're developing a young person's sense of honor and integrity and self. And that's why education is so important. And when it goes off track, and when you have experts from the media whose ideas are being used in the classroom, it suddenly becomes threatening to the future, to the next generation of young people who are going to be employees, who are going to be voting, who are going to be your neighbors, right? All of these things matter.
Did you teach at all at any point, or are you teaching now?
I have been a school board member for a private school, for a public school. I'm now appointed to a statewide board of
Yeah, I
education in
saw
South
that.
Carolina.
Right. Yeah.
So I've
And
served on the boards of a number of institutions.
what is that board specifically in South Carolina? Is it for charter schools or something like that?
It is. We're the only public charter school authorizer in the state of South Carolina, which means we help to oversee them, make sure that they're living up to the contract that they signed. We have the unfortunate responsibility of closing schools when they don't live up to expectations, but we also get the opportunity to open schools every year that have innovative ideas about how to help children in different parts of the state.
And you do open schools, I assume, right?
Every year, almost every year, yes.
Yeah. So you got Zoltan Mamdani in New York, who basically wants to close the charter schools, which is that's just mind-boggling to me, especially because people say, well, his point of view is that they reflect inequality, and I'm thinking, of course, maybe I'm just like too common sense. I don't know. The problem is they reflect inequality. Humans are not equal, and so you have a bunch of, especially black parents in New York City who are trying to get their kids into charter schools because the education's just so much better, and then they want to shut them down. And I just assume it's a political thing, and these kids are being held hostage by politics. It's unbelievable. I just find this terrible.
I mean, it's inexplicable. The headlines lately have been that the mayor wants to take away screening for gifted and talented students. So
Yeah,
the best and brightest kids who would normally be, they would take a test and say as early as kindergarten, but sometimes second grade or third grade, he would take away the ability to identify these students, which means they're going to be in classes, they're going to be bored, their skills and talents are not going to be developed. And by the same token that we need to help those kids who are falling behind, we need to help those kids who are racing ahead as well, right? We need to be
absolutely.
promoting their skills and abilities too. I mean, that's the problem with an assigned school system that's done based on zip code is you cannot design a school to help the needs of each different child because every child is different, and it should be up to the parents to decide how best to meet their needs.
But this gets back to what you're talking about, basically Marxist training to me, and that is the fact that we're all supposed to be equal. We aren't. I mean, I don't know how archaeologists have figured this out, or I'm sorry, anthropologists. But supposedly, going back millennia, 5% of the public has been basically smarter than the other 95%. I don't understand how they figure that out, and I don't understand how you measure it. But supposedly, that's the case. And anybody who's had anything to do with it was teaching children knows that's true too.
However, the biology works, the responsibility of a government is to remove obstacles for people to want to succeed, right? They should be
Thank you.
protecting
That's
the rights that
very
were
well put.
inalienable.
Very well put. Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, their responsibility is to protect our rights. They don't give us our rights, and they certainly shouldn't be taking it away. But when you have people like Mondami who think that they know better than everybody else what's good for everyone, why then you have what's good for no one.
Well, that's the problem here is that you have people who are calling average Americans fascists, and yet they're the people trying to put people in the boxes. It's like, you know, I don't know.
That's exactly what identity politics is, right? Your skin color, your country of origin, your sex, right? Your rights and what government gives to you. It's based on those immutable characteristics, and that's ridiculous.
It is absolutely. I totally agree with you. In the process of researching to talk to you today, I came upon an article from a TV station in San Francisco. I found this kind of fascinating about the fact that they set up a telephone in downtown San Francisco. It was kind of a modified payphone that connected to another phone in Abilene, Texas. So you're talking about one of the single most liberal and one of the single most conservative cities in the United States. And basically, the sign in front of the on the phone in San Francisco said, "Talk to a Republican," and the one in Abilene, Texas said, "Talk to a Democrat." And they record. People would go pick up the phone and they would talk to each other. And they recorded the conversations. And just like you said, most of these people did not have much different. Most of the stuff they had in common, and most of them had very pleasant conversations. But if you listen to the press, you'd think we're at each other's throat.
Yeah, conflict sells advertising, but it doesn't help Americans feel like they have shared ideas on which they can agree. And I hope that my book is an optimistic look at the way in which Americans take on these difficult issues, make decisions based on what their values are, and find that there's widespread agreement. We want to protect children. We want to give kids the chance to succeed. We don't want people promoted just based on skin color. I mean, these are all important parts of what we understand as the American way.
Yeah, I have. Let me put your book on the screen here. I know it's behind you on your bookcase, but here's the cover of your book. And you wrote you actually wrote another. This is your second book. Was out in December. Your first book was called "Splintered: Critical Race Theory and the Progressive War on Truth," from 2022. So what are your thoughts on the press here? I mean, is in your mind, is that the primary reason all this crap has gone down?
Well, I feel like not enough people knew what critical race theory was or understood where it came from. I think people would point at it and say, well, it's just tolerance, or there's nothing wrong with DEI, or this is just social justice. When in reality, critical race theory is built from a philosophy that's known as critical theory, which was an evolution of Marxism, right? It was an attempt to take this zero-sum conflict between people groups and apply it to culture. Because Marx, of course, his idea is that this was an economic theory. You have the capitalists, you have the workers, they're always going to struggle. And when the Bolshevik Revolution happened, there were Marxists in Germany who were disappointed that the working class didn't do the same thing in Germany. And so they created, in an academic way, what became known as critical theory. They came to the United States in 1937. They landed at Columbia University, which, if you know anything about Columbia, shouldn't surprise anybody,
Yeah.
and began to develop this notion that American law was systemically oppressive. And that has had a now legacy effect in American law. Critical legal theory still exists in law schools around the country. In the 1980s, late 1980s, a group of these legal theorists said, well, it's not just law. The issue is race. Everything in America can be explained in the shape of racism. It's the cause of everything. It lurks behind everything that happens in public and private life. And I took a look at school curriculum, at free speech issues on college campuses. And over again, I found them reciting the same kinds of revolutionary lines that you find from Marx, from the critical theorists of the 1930s.
Do you think the college kids are just doing this or thinking this way because they've been told to think this way? Which I find scary because I look at my generation. I think the difference right now is that we previously were taught how to think, and now the kids seem to be taught what to think. Do you think there's any basis to that at all?
Well, I think there's a lot of that going on. It's just that they're being taught these ideas from early ages. One of a common book that's used in teacher colleges, right, where teachers go off to get certified
Uh-huh.
before they go into the classroom. A common book that's used is called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which was written by a Brazilian Marxist who was trying to teach the poor in Brazil how to be rebellious against the police. Why they're using this in teacher colleges is beyond me, except that it's teaching teachers to tell young people that revolution and rebellion is the way that they can get by in life. And if that's what they're teaching young people, you're skipping over all of the names and facts and figures and ideas that would give young people something to aspire to, right? Something to live up to.
Yeah.
That's what we want to give young people.
You alluded a few minutes ago about the 1980s. Do you think my friend David Strom, writer, he's a regular guest on this show, he has a theory. I don't know if I call it a theory because I totally agree with him. He has a theory that some of the stuff that's come up in the last 10 years ago sounds so extreme that people actually don't want to believe it. In other words, they're getting it by the public because it is so extreme that no one accepts it's actually happening. Do you think there's anything to that?
I mean, I think if you only see it in the headlines and until you see it in your child's textbook or until you see it in your workplace. For example, I interviewed a chemist in Oklahoma who worked for Chevron Phillips, and he talked about being forced to undergo DEI training. So for those that have never had to do it, or for those who think it's just some headline they see it on the media, I mean, wait till it happens to you. And he realized as a chemist, he was being taught that, George Washington's teeth came from slaves, that America was systemically racist. And he said, wait a minute, what does this have to do with making plastics in my
Really?
job?
Really?
What does this have to do with my role or making me a better chemist? And what we realized is that that kind of training is meant to disassociate you from those things to which you hold dear. They were trying with DEI training to actually separate people from their allegiance to the United States. That's what they're really after.
Right, and that's exactly what Strom is talking about the fact that people don't even grasp this. I have a lot of my friends here in Minneapolis. Of course, this is an extremely liberal city, and I have the impression a lot of them form their opinions literally because they aren't getting correct information. I mean, I don't. Have you encountered this, or did you in your surveys did you come up with anything on this, or?
Yeah, I mean, we see this all the time, right? The idea that American schools are only teaching ideas that students need to get ahead, or that action civics, right, is more effective for young people than actually teaching them the history of our founding fathers. In the same way, right, we're being told that that in Americans' workplaces, it's okay to have quotas for hiring based on skin color or sex, right? When that actually violates the law, right? These are all misconceptions that are used by the media, again, to make us think that the common sense opinions that we have about race and sex are really fringe ideas when they're actually held by a majority of the American public.
So, Jonathan, where do we go from here? How do we counteract all this stuff?
Keep an eye on what's happening in the states. I mean, I think we should be encouraged that states are leading the way in reinforcing the civil rights laws. They are prohibiting the use of taxpayer spending on DEI. We're seeing a revitalization of social studies and history standards in places like South Dakota, Louisiana, Florida. States like Mississippi are leading the way with what's known as the Mississippi Miracle, where they've brought themselves up from the bottom when it comes to reading scores. And now states around the U.S., like Louisiana, are following in their footsteps and changing the way that reading is taught. All of these are things happening at the states, and it's great to have the backing of the White House. But we have to be real and know that we're not always going to have someone in the White House who will have these same ideas, right?
Right.
They might change. So having states lead the way here is really essential, especially when it comes to education policy.
And just I know about the Mississippi Miracle because conversely, for about 50 or 60 years, Minnesota, along with Massachusetts, led the nation in test scores consistently year over year, and now I think we're like 17th or something like that. And like you said, Mississippi came up from I think 49th or 50th or something like that.
Yeah, they were near the bottom.
They were near the bottom. That's right. I know. It's amazing. Jonathan, I can't. Oh, let's put your book on the screen one more time here. It's called The Polarization Myth. You can get it at Amazon. And your first book too. Oh, now I've forgotten. I'm terrible.
Splintered: Critical Race Theory and the Progressive
Oh
War on
yeah,
Truth.
that's behind you too. Look at that. You did this very well.
Strategically placed.
Yes.
Strategically placed.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been really great. Terrific.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You take care. Our thanks to Jonathan Butcher there for joining us. Very well-spoken man. It was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. Hopefully he'll be back. It's time for the snooze news for Tuesday, February 17th. Now, we didn't do a show last night, so we got plenty. I had like 5 days worth of stuff. I'm going to try to plow through this. I've already edited this, and I still have a shitload of stuff. So we're going to plow through this as quickly as we can, because I don't like to keep you folks forever, because I know it's bedtime if you're watching this live, you and 5 other people, and then the thousands of people who watch this on demand, they don't care. But at any rate, both Robert Duvall and Jesse Jackson passed away in the last couple days. You know that. I do want to put a shout out, though. Here's something you don't know. Martha Zoller, who was a talk show host from Gainesville, Florida, she had a stroke on Sunday. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is because she's been on this program. I had a chance at the Talkers Convention in 2023, just before we started the show. I went to the convention. I happened to be sat next to her just by chance, and a wonderful conversation with her, and a chance to spend a couple days with her, basically. And she won the Talkers Woman of the Year that year. The Talkers magazine is the Bible, the industry Bible, magazine Bible of talk media in the United States. And it was a pleasure getting to know her. And then she came on this program about 6 months after we started. And I think it was late 23. I can't remember exactly what the date was, but anyway, she had a stroke on Sunday at church, which she said was very lucky. She was very lucky because there were a lot of people around. Otherwise, she might not have made it through. But she's recovering, and our best to her. So now I want to, and speaking of recovering, and I don't know, that's a bad segue. What is with the Nancy Guthrie thing? I just don't. There is. Oh no, I got a cat walking around here. Hey, move. That's terrible. So, it's been 17 days since one was missing. Now, obviously, it's a tragedy. I hope I don't have to bring that up. There's stuff that because I don't know, because some people are stupid, but we feel that we have to bring up on the air. It's obvious it's a tragedy. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's been pointed out that maybe the reason the press is paying so much attention to this is because the press likes to report on its own. And Natalie, or Samantha Guthrie, her daughter, who hosts the Today Show, is a beloved figure in the industry. Everyone loves her. That's basically the deal. No one has anything bad to say about her. But it's been 17 days. For the first week, Fox News went wall to wall with this. It was 24/7. I just didn't believe it. I mean, it's like there's more news. There's stuff happening other than this, But I mean, I don't know if they did some survey or they figured out really quick that I know that people in America like whodunits, and I know that the true crime podcast thing is huge. I know that. And so I don't know if that's how this plays into this. At this point, I really don't know. But for the first week, it was wall to wall. And now it's about 25-30%, even though we're over 2 weeks into this, but still they're leading programs with this still. And the amazing thing is virtually no new information is coming out. I mean, over the last 17 days, we've learned almost nothing. They found pictures of the guy on the ring door cam. They found a bloody glove. They found blood on the front stoop, and that's about it. We don't know anything. And they've supposedly gotten some ransom letters, which apparently the some of the authenticity is dubious. And I don't understand. I mean, I just think at this point it's getting irresponsible. There's more news than this, and I hate to say it, as much as this is a tragedy, this affects very few people directly, very few. And people say, well, can you imagine it being your mother? And my mother's 101. And yeah, I can imagine it. But that doesn't change the fact that there's more stuff going on. It doesn't. I think this is indicative of the fact the media loves to report on its own. It loves it. I mean, there are people quit work at a certain TV station or die apparently, and they will run 10-minute pieces on it, and nobody knows who this person is outside of the television station. I mean, I don't know. Am I going to do that when my mother passes away? I will probably mention it for 5 minutes at the end of the show, and that'll be it. So I'm just very disappointed in the whole thing. I don't think this serves the public. I'd be surprised if people are this interested. Maybe they are. I mean, my spidey sense is usually pretty good here. I have to admit, for the first time ever, I'm starting to doubt the fact that I might not be connected to the American public. I don't think the public is that interested in this. I know they're interested. I know that. And I'm talking about degrees here, and especially because you look at cable news is dominated. The audience is mostly older men. And I don't think, I understand how maybe women are interested in this, but I don't understand how older men are. It's like, that's the thing. It's beyond me. Maybe I'm losing my touch. I don't know. Maybe I am. So the Trump administration is trying to negotiate with Iran to figure out because they don't want them to develop nukes. And also the Iranian regime is basically collapsing. Now, who did I have on last week talking about this? I can't even remember now, about the fact that we were talking about the fact that the thing that's gotten lost in the story is that the economy of Iran has collapsed completely. The rial, their currency, is now worthless. It's like it was in Germany at the end of World War I. When people were bringing barrels of cash to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, that's the reason. One of the reasons all these people are protesting in the streets in Iran is because they literally no longer have jobs. Well, they do have jobs, but their jobs aren't paying them anything. So why go? So that's what's going on over there. If the regime if this continues, at some point somebody's going to have to influx some cash, and God knows, I hope it isn't us. This whole thing, this Obama scheme about the fact that we should prop them up so that Israel has a duopoly of an adversary. The whole thing was just ridiculous. I mean, it was talking about academic overthinking. It was just crap. And so now, and people are saying this, people are saying, we have an opportunity now to end this once and for all. This whole regime is evil. And so you're wondering, and then people are wondering, well, why is the Trump administration, why are they negotiating with Iran? Why are they trying so hard to do it? And I'll tell you why. This is just my spidey sense. I don't have any input on this from anybody inside. They're doing exactly what Iran has always done. They're biding time. They're trying to get their ducks in a row before they actually attack. I don't think they're serious about this at all. Rubio kind of, over the weekend, kind of intimated this in the sense that he said, that he pointed out, as really needs to be pointed out, that the Iranian regime is, from a practical sense, irrational, because their entire goal is to spread Islamism, radical Islam, over the world. They don't have any other goal. They don't have a goal to take care of their people. They don't have a goal for economic security or to build their country up economically. The only single goal they have is to spread radical Islam. And in that sense, you can't negotiate with them. That's what Ruby's talking about. Now, and he's right. You can't. These people, from a Western point of view, they are completely irrational, and they're never going to be rational. So the best thing to do, destroy them, because they are going to destroy us. As soon as they get a nuclear weapon, Matter of fact, it still scares me because I think they could still do this. They don't maybe can't launch it into the United States, but they could probably bring it here. You know, they'd set off some clandestine nuclear bomb in the middle of Manhattan, and don't put that past them. They would, you know, and they'll probably do Tel Aviv at the same time. Although they have missiles that reach Tel Aviv. These people, they are ruthless. They can't be trusted for the very reason I said. And so I think Rubio kind of tipped their hand when he said it's almost impossible to negotiate with them. It is impossible, and they know that. And these people are not that stupid. I mean, I don't know about you. Rubio might be one of, if not might be the smartest person in the Trump administration. He might be also the most hardworking too. I mean, you've probably seen the memes online about him having a zillion different jobs, and he has, you know. About I don't want to be president of Greenland. It's actually pretty funny, but yeah, but he's right. So I think the reason we're quote unquote negotiating with these people is simply to buy time to get boats and airplane and aircraft over there. That's what I think. Now we have bases in the region, and supposedly they have to be fortified too. We're getting our ducks in a row before we attack them. That's what I think's happening here. So just my 2 bits. Thought you'd be interested. And meanwhile, in Europe, now I don't know. You have to follow the English press to actually understand what I'm talking about. The English press is really, really pushing the idea that Russia's going to start World War III with Britain. They really are. They're constantly harping on this, and once again, I think it's a deception tactic because the Starmer administration over there, the prime minister is failing. He's probably going to go down in history as the worst prime minister ever. So you're going back 900 or 1,000 years. I mean, it has been a complete, utter disaster, his administration, and it's kind of, in that ways, it's kind of like Biden. So but Starmer's actually worse, and also Starmer doesn't have an excuse. He's cogent. You know, I mean, you can make a argument made that the problem with Biden is that maybe at the end, at least, he wasn't all there. There's nothing wrong with Starmer's brain. He's just a complete, utter freaking idiot. And it's not even that he's stupid. He's incompetent. They can't get anything done. You know, and the stuff, I mean, I could spend a half an hour talking about this. Read David Strom and Hot Air. David talks about it all the time at hotair.com. It's terrible what's going on over there. It's just terrible. But I think the reason that the left-wing press in England is pushing this idea, well, first of all, it's just hilarious. Everybody makes Russia out to be the bad guy because there aren't any ramifications. If you do that to China and you do it enough, they'll send somebody over and kill you. The Russians, they don't have enough time or money or energy. I mean, Jonathan Lockwood comes on the show regularly, the military historian. He talks about the fact that the Russian army is still using donkeys, and they are. You know, I mean, what happened, the Ukraine war, everyone assumed was going to be over in 2 weeks. And not only are we 4 years in, but you could make an argument that right now Ukraine is winning. So this tiny little country is beating the crap out of the largest single geographic country on earth. It's really hilarious. It is. And also because the Ukrainians are really smart and amazingly, I don't know if that's because of us or whatever, they have a lot of really high technology. Although, like Jonathan has pointed out, they're teaching us how to use drones. They're masters at the drones thing. So, and that's one of the reasons they've been winning. But yeah, so anyway, the British, they're saying, well, you know, Russia's going to attack us. Well, really? Does Russia really freaking care? You know, now there's some word getting out of Russia that that Putin's health might be failing. Excuse me, and that might be true. It's been rumored that he's had health issues for quite a while. So who knows? But the thing about Russia attacking Britain is absurd. It's just absurd, and they're pushing it simply to deflect off of all of Starmer's problems. That's my take on that too. Once again, I have no inside knowledge of that per se. I'm just telling you what my spidey sense says. Well, this is a really interesting story, and you didn't read this in the news, which is the reason I talk about this stuff. And that is the SNAP benefits program law was changed, what, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago? It was under more restrictions now. There's certain junk food you can't buy with a SNAP card or an EBT card or whatever you want to call it. All right, so and let's get that straight. SNAP is the name of the program. EBT is the actual name of the account you get with the card that allows you to access your SNAP program. That's what that is. So, but they're used interchangeably. The SNAP benefits were changed, and immediately some of the luxury good markets collapsed. In specific, the market for luxury sneakers, for high-end sneakers, literally completely collapsed within a week this happening. It's inexplicable other than this. And then you're wondering, well, geez, all those people were spending money on high-end sneakers? Apparently they were. that's what apparently that's where your tax dollars are going. So some kid in Brooklyn or the Bronx could buy high-end sneakers off a SNAP card. Apparently. I just find this amazing. But yeah, and it's unbelievable how dramatic. I mean, within 7 days, the market completely evaporated totally, and now people, the resellers, are stuck with tons of sneakers they were marking up ridiculous prices. I just thought you'd want to know that. It's just something. That's the reason we call it the snooze news. That's the reason. We've also talked about this here too, and that is that Warner Brothers Discovery has put itself up for sale, and and the two big bidders are Netflix and Paramount Skydance. The Paramount Corporation was bought by Skydance, so now they're kind of one of the same. Excuse me. This has been going on now for months. Supposedly, Netflix won the bid. Supposedly, and there's even a point now where if the bid changes, somebody owes somebody a bunch of money or something like that. But this weekend, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that it's now reconsidering Skydance's bid. And the press has been, you didn't have to be a genius to figure this out. The press is now reporting that David Zaslav, the guy who runs Warner Brothers Discovery, has told insiders that this was his plan all along, simply to get more money out of this deal. Now, I've been saying here for weeks now that I think that Paramount Skydance will end up prevailing here, if only because they're offering more money. It's a business, man, and you're dealing with shareholders. That's the point. So the Paramount offer has always been financially superior to the Netflix offer, especially because Paramount wants to buy the whole thing. Netflix only wants to buy the parts which is basically the Warner Brothers parts, and let the other, especially the cable television channels, they don't want to buy them. So Warner Brothers Discovery would have to sell them separately. Now, you could say, well, okay, you're going to get more money, all this sort of stuff. All I can tell you is that the vagaries of this, so people who know about this stuff, say that's not optimal. And also, there's also the antitrust issues here. If Netflix were to buy, Netflix is the biggest single company in American entertainment right now. Not Disney, not NBC or Comcast. No, Netflix is, in terms of shareholder value and all that sort of stuff, P ratio, all that. If Netflix were to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, there'd be significant antitrust action taken, and there's a possibility that the government might not okay the deal. Whereas with Paramount Skydance, because Paramount isn't that big a company, and also they want to buy the whole thing, it'll probably go through easily. So I just find it kind of hilarious. The reason I'm remembering this, I find it kind of hilarious. Well, Jesus, they're shareholders. Everyone wants the most money. This is business. We're not running a charity here, and since they started, basically, the Paramount deal or bid has been superior to the Netflix bid. So I actually think I'm predicting at the end of the day, Paramount is gonna succeed at this. I think they will be the winner. But right now, that's not true. They're in the underdog position. Here's something I find kind of interesting. I don't know, maybe you saw this, you know. So at the Winter Olympics in Milan, they offered they outfitted the Olympic Village where all the athletes stay with 10,000 free condoms, and they were all grabbed up in 3 days. they they basically evaporated. Geez, I wonder what's going on. All those people and their beautiful bodies, their beautiful young bodies. Holy shit. Yeah, well, okay. And you're in Italy. What's not to like? Oh man. Oh, this I found this kind of interesting. The pilgrimage road in Jerusalem, which has been undiscovered for about 2,000 years, is very well documented during Jesus' time. And it's the road I think that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on, or something like that. But anyway, it was a major thoroughfare. And you know, when you're talking about 2,000 years ago, even the Romans, they're talking about roads or streets. They're basically walkways. Like this, I've seen the picture of this supposed road is about 7 or 8 feet wide. I mean, you could maybe get one cart on it, you know, something like that in one direction. So they're not actually big streets. But the interesting thing here, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because this thing was discovered about a year or two ago. After it was basically completely covered over with dirt for 2,000 years. And when they have now re-excavated it, and it's in pristine condition. It was they didn't have to quote unquote restore it or any of that, or renovate it or anything. It's You can walk on it now. They've actually opened it, and it's open to tourists, and it's exactly the way they found it. And as far as I can anybody tell, it looks virtually identical to the way it did 2,000 years ago, which I find kind of fascinating. I think that's kind of cool. Anyway, Jesus walked that road, and you can now walk that road too. All right, we love to talk about AI here. Um, there's an article in Fox News this weekend about the fact that AI Android robots are getting smaller and safer. There's a company, and I did not actually write down their name, and I should have, that's releasing an AI robot next quarter. It's smaller. It's about 3-4 feet tall, but apparently it's been built for safety. So it's been built to be able to be able to use around people. It won't trample on you. It won't spill stuff on you. All sorts of stuff like that. It's basically built for safety. And concurrently with that, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said that they are not going to allow Chinese AI robots into the country. There's a company in China who said that this year they're going to release an AI Android robot for $6,500. Right now they're about $20,000. I don't know if this new smaller one is going to be the smaller one. Most of these robots up to now are designed to be used on factory floors or warehouses, that sort of thing. The smaller one that this company is releasing is designed specifically to be around people. And I don't know how much it costs. But up to now, the warehouse robots are about $20,000 each. Now you have to say, well, that's kind of expensive. Yeah, but when you think about the fact that it's replacing an employee, and it never needs a break, it never needs food, it never needs a vacation, and it doesn't need any health insurance, you know, it's like, well, you're out of a job. There you go. You're done. So, but Lunding now says they're not going to allow that robot or any other robots from China into the country. That's what they're saying. Now, concurrent with this, in the other AI news, and I find this amazing. You know, Western Digital, you've probably bought a hard drive from them, Passport or whatever they call them, or the computer came with one. They sold out of their entire inventory of hard drives, solid state hard drives, for the year last week. In 2 months, they sold their entire yearly inventory. And get a load of this: 95% of those sales are to only seven different companies. They're enterprise companies. And the reason these companies are using these for AI storage, that's the reason. Now, I've always wondered about this. I've talked about this. You know, we have a YouTube channel. Everyone's on YouTube. YouTube they've announced they're going to start doing this year. But YouTube started in 2006. They've never deleted a single video that's been uploaded to YouTube. And if I'm right, every minute, 300 minutes of video is uploaded to YouTube. That's the last statistic I heard. Where do they store this stuff? I have to tell you, I was in the tech business in the early 2000s, and my partner and I, we thought of the idea of starting what became YouTube before they were working on it, and we didn't do it because we knew the storage costs would just run away and just eat us up. That's the reason we didn't do it. We had all the other technology. We knew how to do it. That was not a problem. It's literally, we knew that we would not be able to afford to keep up with it. Now, the real amazing thing is Google bought YouTube in, I think, 2008 or 2009. If Google had not bought them, they would have went out of business for the very reason I'm talking about. Google's the only company on earth at that time that had the tech balls to run it and also the money to fund it, because Google did not make money on it for 20 years or 10 maybe. Okay, it's 2026. I think Google finally made a profit on YouTube around 2020, 5-6 years ago. So, okay, 10 years. I'm wrong. I had to do a little math there. But they lost money on it for a long time, and they're the only people who could afford to do it. I mean, at every data center for YouTube, they must have a team of people that run around and just install hard drives all the time, because the storage it's ridiculous. I mean, and up until recently, because of this AI stuff, storage costs have been going down tremendously. I don't have to tell you. I mean, you can get a half terabyte thumb drive now for about $35-$40. That's probably going to go up because memory costs are going up now too, because AI is grabbing all the memory processing chips that are necessary. AI is basically gobbling up everything. So I just found this really fascinating about the fact that Western Digital sold out its entire inventory of hard drives for the whole year in 2 months. They're done. It's amazing. And finally, in Los Angeles, where they've had terrible storms there, it's been raining and raining and raining. The Waymo taxis, the self-driving Waymo taxis, which is run by Alphabet Google, they're getting stranded because they're getting flooded. they drive into intersections that are flooded, and then they can't get out. I don't know why I find that funny. I do find it funny because we're in Minneapolis. This is the last place. Oh, and I shouldn't say that. This is the last place they're going to come, although they're here now. We have them here in Minneapolis. I don't know if they're going to run in the winter. I don't. But because that's the problem. The last big holy grail of these self-driving cars is getting them to drive in the snow, because apparently first of all, they can't see the snow. And then secondly, you slip around and stuff like that, and they can't. It's like that's the last great hurdle for getting this to work. So this is the last place they're going to come, I figure. But now they've already announced they're coming here. So I don't know. That'll be interesting too. Now, you probably heard about this. So, what do we talk about here? We talk about AI and UFOs. So they shut down, this made the press, and you've probably heard about this. They shut down the airspace over El Paso, Texas. Now they've shut it down for a whole 2 weeks. No flights in and out. And that even includes hospital helicopters. It's not a good thing, actually. It isn't. It's the first time, I want to make sure I get this straight. This is the first time since 9/11 the U.S. government's done this, and they've never done it. It's the first time they've ever done it for a civilian airport, if I'm right, ever. The buzz was they did it because of drones, who they did not know who were operating from, were buzzing the airport. And then it turned out, then they announced it was basically a party balloon or something like that. Well, people are saying, and there's pictures being posted on Enigma, which is this app where you can post UFO sightings. People are taking pictures around the El Paso airport that very, very clearly have UFOs in them. And now people are thinking that's the reason they've done this. And the fact they did it for 2 weeks is completely unprecedented too. I mean, this has never happened before, ever in U.S. aviation history. It's happened for military bases, but never for civilian airport. And so, and the people are wondering what's going on, especially why that long, especially if it was just party balloons or even drones, you know. But there's pictures of these UFOs flying around the El Paso airport. You know, I just realized that I was going to load a photo up to show you guys, and I forgot to do it. That's too bad, because of a story I got coming up here in a minute. And so, you know, I've talked about this too. Supposedly, this has been the buzz on this has been huge. Supposedly on July 9th, the 79th anniversary of Roswell, Trump is going to announce the fact that the extraterrestrials have been coming here, supposedly. Now, here's my caveat. I don't think this is going to happen then. And the reason is, although there's another way to look at this too. There's a guy who named a whistleblower, and I think his name is Gary Skillett. I never got this right. You know, he has said that that's not how this is going to go down, because he said if Trump just got up on a podium and said that extraterrestrials are here, there's some people who not only wouldn't believe him, he'd be mocked just because it's Trump, right? So this guy said, no, this is not the way this is going to happen. It's going to happen. The president will set up a commission to investigate it, and then the president will announce their findings, the fact that the extraterrestrials are real. And that committee now, believe it or not, in the last couple of weeks, they're starting to set a committee like that up. And so now I'm starting to think, oh, maybe, I mean, it's February, you know, you're talking about July. They could go, you know, meet for 2 or 3 months and gather some data and stuff and give it to the president. And God knows, maybe there he is on the podium saying, well, the committee has determined that the extraterrestrials are here. And then people would probably buy it more, and they probably would. I have said that I don't think Trump's going to announce this until 2 weeks before he leaves office. That's what I think. I think it's too disruptive for everything else he's trying to talk about. Now, they talked about this on the big weekend show on Fox News, and I found this really fascinating. There's 4 people on the panel there. Tommy Lahren and Joey Jones are the hosts, and 2 others. And to my amazement, they did talked among themselves, who believes the aliens are here, and all 4 of them said they did, which kind of surprised me. You know, I mean, I know there's still people highly skeptical of this. I know some people. You know, my friend, I have a friend who watches this show regularly, and he's complete, doesn't buy any of this stuff at all. And I'm talking to him on the phone. He says, "Well, Jimmy, you know," and he says, "Okay, so let's say the extraterrestrials are coming here. What am I supposed to do about it? Am I supposed to like quit work? And my point is, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up. My point to you: no, you're not supposed to do anything. No, you're not. Your life shouldn't change, and that's actually the very reason I think it's kind of important to get this out. But we're going into the assumption now that we've been conditioned enough so that we know our life shouldn't change. There are people who jump out of windows. I will tell you, there's people who will commit suicide because of this. This is going to happen because some people will not be able to accept it at all. The point is, it'd be way, way less people who are going to kill themselves now than would have 50 years ago. That's the thing. And also, my stress on this has been kind of emphatic and long term. If we announce it to ourselves, we announce it to the rest of the world. And I think there's large swaths of the human population on Earth that won't be able to handle this outside of let's say Western civilization. You know, so I don't know. It's going to be really interesting, but I think the president will wait. I don't think they'll do it in July. Supposedly, the speech is already written. That's what the insiders of the administration said. The speech is already written, and he's agreed to give it. So we'll see. And that all came up because this weekend Barack Obama was on a podcast with Brian Tyler Cohen, and he says, and Cohen asked him, just point, you know, are extraterrestrials real? And what Barack said is, yeah, they're real, but I've never seen one. That's what he said. Now, that was on Saturday, I think. As of yesterday, he had to walk that back. He said, what I meant is that the universe is so vast, there's bound to be other intelligent life out there. He said, "No, I don't." He says, "I have no evidence, or I've never been told that extraterrestrials are real." I don't believe him. I don't believe him at all. I think he knows because he has alluded to it many other times in the past. So, but it's not, he's not president anymore. It's probably not his place to announce that, or even if he did, well, people are already skeptical. I mean, people are making fun of him for that. That's the thing. This Skillet guy, he was saying that, yeah, if Trump stands up in a podium and announces this stuff, they're probably gonna make fun of him too. You know. All right, I've been talking way too long here. So I will end with this, especially because, like I said, I had a photo I want to show you and I forgot to load it up. So we'll do that on Thursday. Um, Papa John's has announced that they are trying to become the first pizzeria chain on Earth to actually win a Michelin star. There's 70 pizza chains in the United States. I don't know about worldwide, but there's 70 in the United States. And I don't know how they measure a pizza chain. I don't know if you have to be outside of a certain geographic area or whatever it is. But anyway, there's 70 of them. And they have spent years designing the recipe for this pan pizza that just came out. And they want to get a Michelin star. So, well, good luck to them. I have a story about that. I'm not going to tell it now. About I ate at a Michelin star restaurant in France years ago, and it was pretty hilarious. So, but we'll save that for later. So, because I've been prattling on, I told you I plowed through this pretty quickly, and it took half an hour. Now we're not doing a show tomorrow, Wednesday night. Thursday night, our guest is going to be Wayne Morrow, the executive director of the John Birch Society. He's been on this program a couple times previously. Very entertaining guy. I love him. I love talking to him. He's coming on Thursday. Next week, I said we're going to go back to 4 nights a week. Well, we are, except I have to take one night next, either Tuesday or Wednesday night off next week to tend to my mother. Like I said, she's 101 years old. I got to take care of some business for her. She does not live in Minneapolis, so it's a drive for me. It's an all-day affair to go see her. So I don't know if we're going to be taking either Tuesday or Wednesday night off next week. Otherwise, the other 3 nights I expect to be on. So no show tomorrow. Wednesday, Thursday, Wayne Morrow. I want to thank Jonathan Butcher again for joining us. He's a great guest. We'll have him back. I want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate it a lot. I do. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you on Thursday night, folks. Take care.